we'll jump it over to Luis Matos, who last year he was kind of my pick where I said, this guy looks like he's ready to break out. And he had that huge spring training. They put him on the roster for like 2 days. Well, they didn't technically. He wasn't on the opening day roster, but then I think it was Yaz had the paternity leave like the first weekend. So he comes up, he gets like one game of at-bats, and then they send him down to AAA. He starts off hot, then kind of hit the skids. Then he comes up, has that insane week where he had like 20 RBIs and was player of the week. And we looked like, okay, this guy's finally breaking out. And then it just didn't materialize. We saw his plate discipline, go down significantly this last season. We saw, just overall regression from his pitch selection. His contact skills were still there, like that. Nothing went away there. Like he was still putting the bat on the ball, but it just led to a lot of very poor contact. And he was very clearly trying to, hit everything over the fence in left field. So everything felt like he was trying to like yank in the air, something that we've complained about a ton. So he goes to, Venezuela. He transformed his body last season. This season feels like he's working more on approach, things like that. He goes to Venezuela. I'm going to share my screen here. Has a really great, winter league over there. Had 235 plate appearances, / 300, 345, 536. So that ends up, coming out to what, 881 OPS with 10 home runs, also hit 20 doubles, 41 RBIs. The strikeout rate was right at 10%. The walk rate, now this is the one concern I think most of us have. The walk rate was only at 5%. For that, it is, it's a hit, as Jeff Young mentions here, it's a hitter-friendly league. It's not the highest level of competition, but if you do follow a lot of the stuff on like Instagram and things like that, they did actually post a lot of highlights. The most encouraging thing for me was he was using the whole field again, hitting line drives, going gap to gap, hit some doubles, drove some balls hard into right center. That led to doubles, not hit line drives into right field. It was just a lot of the things that I saw him do in 2023 when he was having a ton of success, in particular at like AA and AAA. So that for me was encouraging. The walk rate is never going to be high with a guy like Luis Matos. Look around the league at guys that have elite contact skills and bat to ball skills. They don't walk a ton because they put a lot of balls in play. So you want that to be a high average guy. And, I think Luis Arias is like the highest end of this where he's, he obviously hits like 340, but his walk rate's like 3%. Like he doesn't strike out and he doesn't walk. Like that's just normal. So hopefully Matos can turn himself into a 280, 290 hitter. And if he does that, if he can get the walk rate up to like 7% or 8%, I don't think many of us would complain. Just kind of how I feel about it.
No, and it was very encouraging to see for sure. I think Matos for me is a guy that would really benefit from feeling like he has trust in him from the front office. I think he's a guy that really was hurt by the front office of the past few years, is handling of the younger players where they never felt like they could get comfortable. I mean, it's something that you've seen with Casey Schmidt as well, where they're constantly feeling like they've got to look over their shoulder and go, oh, crap, I just had a bad 3-4 games, and now I might be getting the call to go back down to Sacramento for the 5th time this year. And I think he's a guy that would benefit greatly from just knowing, hey, this front office really believes in me. They trust me, and they're going to give me a leash to where if I struggle, I'm going to stay up here for a while, and I'm going to work through those struggles because I'm ready to play at this level, and I have nothing left to prove in AAA. I think that would be huge for him because I think you just see him where he gets in these really deep funks, and it's just a matter of him pressing honestly and kind of getting away from that plate discipline. And then you do see his strikeout numbers go up a little bit, even though he is a very good contact hitter. And you do see him, chase and, make a lot of weak contact at balls way out of the zone too. because he does have such good, bat to ball skills, kind of like a Pablo Sandoval of years past, where he gets into those funks and he's just getting out of his zone. And if he just gets within his zone, everything will simplify itself. So I think he would benefit greatly from that this year if they don't go out and get another, veteran outfielder before free agency kind of wraps up.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's something that we've been emphasizing as well. Like if you're not going to get, another guy brought in either via trade or free agency, you got to give a guy like Luis Matos a real definite look. Because I mean, you saw flashes of what he can do last year clearly, and then he backed it up again in the Winter League with basically winning Rookie of the Year there. So yeah, and it's encouraging based off of what you said, Cody. It's something you emphasize this past season as well. Is getting the ball in all parts of the field, like not just focusing on just trying to rip one out over the fence. It's just looking to drive it and put it in play. And what's that saying? Put the ball in play and good things happen. And it's that basically sums up that. Yeah. See, so yeah, it was encouraging, man. I just hope it carries over to spring and we get to see more of it this year because you can tell he's on the verge of like legit breaking out.
Yeah. It just has felt like he has been so close. Like he's been so close to doing it. And for whatever reason, it hasn't happened yet. I know the one thing I have seen like on X and different things where they're like, well, if he can't mentally handle the pressure, like then he's not cut out for it. And it's like, there's a difference between having to deal with pressure and feeling like you can't make a mistake. And just like what Ricky said about Schmidt, like it is very clear how they've treated, and this is how Ramos was treated. Like, and you know what? Kudos to Ramos that he kind of said "F you" to them and got it together and just put a death grip on a job. But like some of these guys, like it's a game of failure, and you're making these guys feel like they can't fail, and that's no way to develop a good young player. Like there's just, you can't have these guys afraid of failure in a game that you're gonna fail 7 to 8 times or 7. The best players are failing like 7 times out of 10 or like 7.5 times out of 10 depending on what kind of hitter you are. It's like that is just no way to do it, and that's where I feel like they've had him. And I think if he could, kind of like what we saw with Fitzgerald, where they put him out at short and said, you're not going to bounce around. You're going to play short every day. And I mean, yeah, he went on a run and then kind of slowed down and, whatever. But the overall production, if you just look at the big picture production, was really good. And it's like, if you just give these guys a job and then clear the way for them and just say, like, you're going to go play every day in some capacity. We might DH you occasionally. You might play, he might have to go to left or right field depending on the day. Whatever, like if you just get him out there and say you're going to play every day, Ramos, you're going to play every day. Maybe Yaz starts a couple games in right and you DH one of them, or you give him one day off a week, whatever the case may be. But like, just give the guy a shot because the talent is there, the potential is there. He does a lot of things that this team does not have a lot of, with the bat to ball skills. And I still to this day feel like if he hits his ceiling, he could be an ideal number 2 hitter on this team.
For sure. He totally fits that role. Just as another contact guy, something that they've desperately needed the last few years. But ultimately, like I said, it comes down to him swinging at good pitches and making good decisions, because ultimately if they give him a ton of run and he goes back to, those bad habits where he can't snap out of it quicker, then, his average goes down into the low 200s. And then, like you said, with him not having a high walk rate, you're looking at a guy who's on base is going to be sitting in like the 270, 280 range for a long time. And you just can't have that, especially not if the guy is like a future, top of the order type hitter.
100%. Like I feel like best case, like he's like a 290 hitter and his on base will still probably only be like 330. Or 340, yeah. Like because his walk rate's not going to be that high. Like maybe if you can get him up, and that's kind of why I mentioned that 7 to 8% range. That way, if he's a 280 hitter, it'll still be above average. Like it'll still be like 340-ish, 330-ish.
Mhm.
And I think league average last season was about 318. It's kind of bounced between about 316 and 320 over the last handful of years has been league average on base. So, and for a guy that doesn't slug a ton, like you kind of don't want him to be like super low on base as well. Like that's kind of
Mhm.
the catch 22 with all this. But I don't think he's a guy that necessarily has to be an 800 plus OPS guy. Like for him to be a very valuable player, I think he's a guy that he could hit a ton of doubles, maybe pop 10 to 15 out of the park. I'd love for them to get his stolen bases up to like at least 10 to 15. I think he
I
has
was
plenty
just
of
gonna
speed
say
to do
that.
that. And then just play solid defense in like left field. And if he's, got a 770 OPS, like who cares? Like with a high average like that, you're contributing to this team in a significant way.
Yeah.
So